very positive and constructive. That is how the White House is describing Saturday's nuclear talks in Oman with Iranian officials, with plans for continued talks at the end of this week. Joining me with more on this topic is former Special Assistant to the President and former National Security Council Senior Director Michael Allen. Always great to have you inside the studio because there's so much that we can sort of unpack here. Let me begin by sharing a bit from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. He's talking about the need, first and foremost, to prevent the regime from ending up with a nuclear weapon. Here's sound from him. Get your reaction afterwards.
If we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope we never get there. Iran's taking a look at what's happening to the Houthis and realizing they don't want any part of it. And that's because we're dismantling the Houthis' capabilities.
Well, they're certainly doing that. I mean, that's unarguable. They are absolutely hammering the Houthis, and yet we have been at this position before, Michael, where there's lots of talk. The Iranians lie or they obfuscate. Do you expect any progress in this circumstance?
Well, I think it's going to be really tough because the Iranians, I think, believe that for them to have a nuclear weapon guarantees that the Iranian revolutionary regime would stay in power forever. So I think we are going to have to really drive a tough bargain, not just with the maximum pressure sanctions that President Trump has addressed, but also the credible threat of some sort of military force, be it Israel, the United States, or both of us, pressuring Iran to make real compromises, or else I think they're going to tiptoe right up to having a bomb.
Here's the question, though. Do you really expect that despite what they say, they'll actually follow through? I remember with the inspectors, the IAEA, they wouldn't let certain people come in. You couldn't look at this facility. You can't do that. There seems to be a pattern that I've been watching play out since 1979, or maybe I'm just skeptical because I hear about it the most.
You're appropriately skeptical. They've cheated so many times. There have been underground uranium enrichment facilities that we've found. Ultimately, if President Trump goes up with a deal, he's got to be profoundly skeptical throughout the deal itself. We've got to have good intelligence. We have to have our allies lined up to be able to watch and stare persistently at the Iranians. But look, I don't know that the Israelis are going to feel comfortable regardless. I think that the theater is set for them to make a strike sometime this year, and honestly, I think that's where it's headed.
Before I share some of the foreign minister from Iran, who seemed fairly positive about the way conversations are going, can you do me a favor and distinguish the difference between the regime and the Iranian people? They're dynamic. They are, for lack of a better description, many of them are frankly freedom-loving, but they're in a very desperate circumstance in that country.
Well, you were right to harken back to 1979. The Persian people have a long, proud civilization, and the theocratic, really extreme version of Shia Islam took over in 1979, and that's what's ruled that particular country. It's very harsh towards women, human rights, freedom generally, and I think you can see that if they can't keep the economy going, the people feel taxed and they feel restless and they really want a change in government.
And that's exactly why economic pressure, as well as the threat of military pressure, is so important. That said, I do want to give a fair shot here to the foreign minister, who seems somewhat encouraged by the way the talks are going in Oman. Your reaction to this? Oh, we have a graphic, actually. My apologies. Can we share that? Here it is. This is actually off of X. Constructive and promising round of indirect talks with U.S. Special Envoy Witkoff, kindly hosted and mediated by my brother. The talks were conducted in an atmosphere of mutual respect. I elaborated Iran's viewpoints in a firm yet forward-looking manner. Both sides decided to continue the process in a matter of days. You know, there's that. If nothing else, they're saying that, look, we're happy, we feel respected, we can keep the dialogue going. I think that's a win for both sides.
I think it's good, but look, we can't let this go on forever. We can't let this become a delay mechanism to allow them to continue to study how to weaponize uranium. And so we got to be skeptical. We have to keep this time limited. It's more than just our relationships with the people that show up there. It's us recognizing that they may sneak to a bomb or break out and sprint to a bomb, and we got to be ready.
Can I ask, and I know this is a little bit complicated, The Obama-Biden regime had a particular approach to sort of slowing down, if you will, their march toward a nuclear weapon. Was that effective? Was it ineffective? Tell me about the difference in the way they handled things versus the way the Trump administration hopes to handle things.
Well, we're going into a maximum pressure phase, but Trump seems like he is interested in a deal, but he appropriately was skeptical of the Obama deal, which put time limits, but we don't want just time limits on their ability to build a nuclear bomb. We want it to be in perpetuity, in effect. And we want them to not be able to perfect their enrichment. We want them to be shut down. And you mentioned the IAEA inspectors. They have to be given unfettered access across the country. That hasn't happened in years, and that is going to be part and parcel of any trust that would go into a future agreement.
You nailed it. If that doesn't happen, this is where I think the SecDef, the defense secretary, is right. All options are on the table, and rightly so. Michael Allen, real pleasure to see you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.